Welcome back, everyone. This is Dave from Quantum Productions. My co-host Stacie here to talk about the original Quantum Leap, Season 5, Episode 8, titled Trilogy, Part 1, One Little Heart. The episode's description reads as follows. Sam is a small-town sheriff whose young daughter has a suspicious connection to a mysterious death. The episode was written by Deborah Pratt. She will be responsible for each and every one of these trilogy episodes. And the episode was directed by James Whitmore Jr. He also directed all 3 of these episodes. The episode takes place on August 8th, 1955, which I believe, is that Sam's birthday?
Yes. This would have been Sam's 2nd birthday.
Ooh.
It's also the same leap date as The Color of Truth.
Oh, okay. And originally aired on November 17th, 1992. Before going any further, I'll tell you a couple things. One, this is not a free podcast, so if you haven't watched the episode, I highly recommend you check it out, and then come back and give us a listen. Secondly, if you're listening on one of the platforms of this podcast is now available on, please follow, and feel free to check out our YouTube channel, Quantum Productions, where additional content can be discovered both Quantum Leap related and otherwise. If you're already on our YouTube channel, please like, share, and comment, and subscribe to our channel. Alright, so, first of all, shout out a big one to all the people who have participated in our trivia.
Yes.
Which would be John Irons, John Wilbura, Brian Green, Christopher DeFlippis, let's see, Hayden, Mike. Am I missing anybody?
I wasn't counting.
No, you weren't?
You should have 7. Was that 7?
I don't know, but I think I'm missing one. There has to be at least one that I'm missing.
Suzanne!
Suzanne Smiley, yes.
She was so quiet then.
Yeah.
So we recorded a big Quantum Leap trivia session, which is available now for our early access members, and it'll be available soon for everybody else.
In a couple of days.
It was a fun time.
Yep.
So make sure you check that video out, and then let us know how you do on trivia.
Right, absolutely. It was definitely a fun time. I'm happy to hang out with those guys any day of the week. Our like-minded friends that we have earned throughout the
you know what was really fun?
Years.
It was just being with people that can sit down and spend 2 hours answering questions about Quantum Leap,
right? And
have fun doing it.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a tiny little window of interest,
Yes, it's very niche.
And it was everybody enjoyed it and was happy to be there, and that's just so cool. And even though we obviously know that about our Quantum Leap friends, to just live in that little space, for a while, it was so much fun.
Absolutely. Other shout outs, Mimi, for talking about the last week's episode. That would be Deliver Us from Evil. She had the same kind of questions that we did about the episode. Actually, I want to bring up something. Go back to discussing that episode for a moment.
Okay.
And I'm kind of wondering, we usually ask if Sam leaped into the wrong person. Maybe Aaliyah leaped into the wrong person. Why not just leap into Frank and then instantly engage in an affair? And then, boom, done. You're done. The way she's going about things, and I said this repeatedly.
Well,
it would take forever. It would at least take a couple of months to derail a marriage and the family within the manner that she was choosing to go about it.
Right.
And if it's just about ruining their lives, pop into Frank and shoot everybody, and then everybody's life is ruined and Frank goes to prison for the rest of his life.
Okay, well, one thing I think that she personally wants to avoid killing people when she can.
Okay.
She's not evil.
She herself is not evil. She's just on an evil mission.
She's not going to take the course of least resistance, right, and just kill everybody every leap. Her goal was to break them up.
Yeah.
I don't know. So if she just leapt into him and had an affair, it might not have been enough, to be honest.
Really?
Because when he came back, and he wouldn't do that, and, it's... I forget what year that was, but...
Connie would still think that he did it, so wouldn't that be enough to...
Well, that's what I was saying. I don't remember what year this was, but
1960
not necessarily enough.
I get you, because the culture and things were very different back then, so it might not have been her choice as much to get a divorce.
So here at the point, convincing the man that he wants to leave the relationship was probably the easier way to go about it.
Okay. Yeah, and
when you look at the dynamics of what would they be left with once she's gone.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think she would had to have been there for at least a couple of months doing this.
It wasn't just about getting him to cheat. It was about getting him to leave the marriage.
Gotcha.
And pursue a relationship with the other woman.
Okay.
Right?
All right, sure.
Because that's what happened, is they ended up together.
She also seemed to be on board with the whole theory that eventually Ziggy becomes Lothos, specifically pointing to the new series where Ziggy is presented as being evil when the light turns red.
Right.
Which I think is a bit of a misnomer because Ziggy wasn't evil. Ziggy was just an information source.
The takeaway was, spoilers for the revival if you haven't watched it, Ziggy is the mole. Didn't mean Ziggy was actively participating in any evil deception. It was simply that the future was using the information stored in Ziggy.
Right.
To know what happened in the past, which was the present.
Gotcha.
I had something else to say about that, but I lost it.
You just completely lost it?
I lost it right mid-thought.
Well, if it should come back to you, feel free to bring it back up.
Oh, actually, okay. I do know where I was going to go. All right. I know where I was going to go.
Okay.
The fact that in the revival, they've taken away all of Ziggy's identity.
Yes.
Right? Yes. Ziggy can't be evil in the revival.
That was one of my biggest complaints.
They took away, what an opportunity it could have been. Ziggy should have been this perfect, wonderful character AI, right? And they didn't do that. They went so opposite of that. Ziggy doesn't have a voice. Ziggy doesn't have opinions. Ziggy doesn't have a personality.
Right.
Ziggy was simply a computer program.
Right.
Like a bad version of Google. I think that's in my notes somewhere.
Yeah. For this episode?
Or maybe I was just thinking this thought out loud when I read her comment. I thought
okay.
I feel like I remember typing this, but I don't know.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I don't have notes about.
I mean,
I think I thought about it and maybe wanted to put it in my notes and didn't.
I specifically called the new version of Giggy a bad version of Google many times.
Right.
Because that's what it basically boils down to.
Right. I feel like Google has more of a personality than Revival Ziggy did.
Right. Pretty much.
So no, I don't agree that can lean us to thinking that Ziggy becomes Lothos, because that version of Ziggy isn't our Ziggy.
Right. Gotcha.
It's not. That's not Deborah Pratt Ziggy.
No. Ashley Wright commented on the Nowhere to Run podcast saying that 235 episodes of Friends was 235 too many.
Oh.
So I'm getting this feeling that Ashley is not a big fan of Friends.
Okay.
All right, but that's all I got for shout-outs. I think you have one.
Shout-out for our Deliver Us from Evil. This comes from Blue Sky, from Matt Josephson. He says, I was hoping you'd point out what the heck is Sam doing when he's locked in the bedroom. He's like prying at the door hinge with an alarm clock. And I missed that, what Sam was using to try and
I didn't notice that either.
But I imagine he must have, he didn't have a lot of time to think. He's told he's about to get shot.
Right.
So he reached for whatever he could find in the bedroom. I guess it was an alarm clock.
Well, Sam's brain wasn't exactly working throughout that episode very much, so yeah.
Now, to be fair, it is really easy to take a door off the hinges, and that is the right move. Like, for an interior door like that, if you are locked in a room, taking it off the hinges is probably easier than breaking the lock.
Gotcha.
But the correct instrument would be like a screwdriver or a butter knife or, something that you can get some leverage on to pop to pop the hinge.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that an alarm clock would have been effective, but maybe there was nothing else in the room. I don't know.
Maybe not. All right, so Stacie, your thoughts on this week's episode.
Okay, so everybody who's ever listened to us should know Trilogy is my favorite. Of all Quantum Leap, what's your favorite episode? I say Trilogy. I'm incapable of picking an episode. I pick 3. But if I did have to pick one within Trilogy, this would be the one.
Okay.
My order of preference within Trilogy is 1, 3, 2.
That makes sense.
So I guess that makes this my number 1 Quantum Leap episode.
Wow, okay. Here we are.
So here we are. And do I think it's perfect? No. But I've always loved it. I always loved this story. And watching it this week to take these notes, trying to think of why do I love this story, right? And I really think it comes down to Kimberly Cullum. I love her performance. I loved, as a kid, I loved watching her. And I thought she was this amazing, portrayal. The story's just kind of spooky and creepy. She's creepy.
Yes,
right. She delivers this creepy performance.
Yeah.
We have Meg Foster, who's super duper creepy.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just kind of this eerie mystery that surrounds this whole plot that continues, through 3 episodes. Mm-hmm. Which in and of itself, I think that appeals to me. Like the continuing story, the fact that it's not all wrapped up in a bow at the end of the episode. We still have questions. We still don't know what the heck's going on at the end of this. And the fact that we just spend more time with these characters and with this story, I think, is one of the things that makes it better for me. Is just having more of it.
I do love the concept of, spending 3 episodes, like, dealing with the same type of story and telling a complete story over basically a period of 30 years, essentially.
Yeah, it's throughout her lifetime, right? It's not even like, to be continued, 3 parts. It's 3 separate leaps, 3 separate looks into not only Abigail's life, but this whole town, right? And what's happening with the different characters. We follow all these characters throughout their lives to see, like, this little portrait of where they are at this moment, all to solve the mystery of what happened to Violet.
Right.
Which, happened before we even get here. And we carry that mystery throughout the whole thing. And I love everything about it. Sorry, I'm not going to complain about it.
Okay.
I mean, not like every single detail, but general arc, I love it. It's a good story.
Yeah, these 3 episodes are pretty controversial within the fandom.
Right.
I never had the issues that the fandom had. Maybe it's because I was younger when I was watching it that I don't have some of these issues. But I thought it was like a really solid beginning to the trilogy, this episode. And yeah, there are some things that I don't quite understand, and maybe you can explain it to me as we go.
We'll see.
But yeah, I mean, like I said, I think this is all in all a pretty solid, good episode. And it's quite an accomplishment. It's the kind of thing that I think if this series had continued, they might have done more of as we went along, like telling 3-part stories like this. And yeah. So do we have anything else to say before diving in?
Let's go for it.
All right. So Sam leaps in, finding himself standing in the river, holding a paddle. He's very confused, but then discovers beneath him a very dead man in the water. Sam says, "Oh boy," and credits. And this person, I did not do. Do we know who played him? The dead body?
No, I tried finding it and I couldn't find it.
Gotcha.
I didn't try too hard. It might be out there somewhere, but it wasn't in any of our usual sources.
Gotcha.
Who played?
Well, until I realized, like, sometime later, I thought this was played by James Whitmore Jr. I knew he was involved with this episode, and he made an appearance. I thought he was the dead body.
You thought he was Bart?
Yeah.
Does Bart ever have a flashback?
I don't know. He doesn't.
Yeah.
He's basically...
I was just going to say, I didn't check the other 2 episodes if there was a listing for him.
No, I'm pretty sure this is it. Him as a dead body, and that's all. He's a corpse throughout this episode. Right. But other than that, no, I don't think he makes a reappearance. Okay. And, there's no. So
I didn't mess up by not checking episodes 2 and 3.
I'm pretty sure there's no appearance for him. But
and that's going to be one interesting thing about this is we're going to cover all these actors today, and then we don't need to talk about their credits again in the next 2 episodes.
Yes, because
which is very unusual for our Quantum Leap podcast to not have a cast to talk about. There'll be a couple new faces, but.
All right, so when we come back, Sam helps the corpse out of the water, but there's nothing he can do for him. He's very clearly dead. His deputy, Bo Loman, finds him and recognizes the body as Bart Ader. Bo is played by Stephen Lee, 3 appearances in the series, all within this trilogy. 119 credits for him in total. 2 appearances on Star Trek The Next Generation, 1 on Doogie Howser and The West Wing, and I remember his appearance on that. I didn't make the connection until I saw this, but he died on August 14th, 2004, at the age of 58.
One credit I found interesting is he played the Big Bopper in the movie La Bamba.
Oh, okay. So the Big Bopper, that was, he was a musician. Buddy Holly?
No, those are different people.
Oh, they are? Okay, never mind. Okay. So Sam says out loud that he's the sheriff. And he's basically, he covers himself for saying such an obvious statement by saying that he means that he should know something about the situation. And Bo says if having the badge means he has all the answers, there might be hope for him. And by the way, I do really like Bo throughout this trilogy. He's a fun character. He has a sense of humor, and he's basically really good at his job, I think.
That's one of the things I was saying is, we get to watch the characters grow.
Yes.
All of them. We get to see them, like, not just in, like, this 2 days of a story. We get to see them at different points in their life.
Right.
Which is a unique perspective for this show. One thing I have in my notes here is during Sam's kind of opening monologue here, he talks about how coming upon a dead body when he leaps in, and how that's his least favorite thing. And every time, his thoughts is just, why am I too late to save this person? Right. Why did I not leap in time to prevent this death? Right?
That's actually a good question.
It is a good question.
Well, why not say Bart here, but why not go even stop Violet from dying?
Say Violet, and then none of this would have happened, right?
Right.
Abigail would have never been in trouble if we saved Violet.
Yeah. So, I mean, just making that one changes, like, and, none of these people die. And
I mean, GFTW didn't think Violet was worth saving, I guess. Only Abigail.
Okay.
But anyways, what he said is he'd leaped in standing over a dead body twice before, is what he said at this. And I was like, which two is he talking about? Okay,
so let me think about this.
I came up with 3 possibilities, not 2.
Played Against Seymour.
Yeah.
Then there was the episode I didn't like, whose name I can't remember. But yeah, it was the one where he leaps into the mortician. Good Night, something like that.
Good Night, Dear Heart.
Good Night, Dear Heart, yes. Mm-hmm. That episode. And then I can't think of a third. What was he?
The third that I was saying was Dreams.
Dreams,
where he's not directly standing over the body, but he's really close to the body and following a trail of blood to the body.
Yes.
And holding a gun, wondering if he's the murderer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I would count all 3 of those.
Well, sure. I mean, but that's like, saying Swiss cheese memory for you.
He doesn't. I wonder which one he doesn't remember.
Right.
2 of them stood out to him.
Right. So Bo notices that Bart got smacked in the head. Sam figures he was dead before he got hit. I'm not sure how he's figuring this.
Well, because he's a doctor.
Sure, but you'd be able to tell that just by looking at him.
Well, that's what Bo was like. Like, how do you figure? And he goes, "Oh, I'm guessing."
Right.
Because he's downplaying like that he has any reason to think that.
Right.
But also note later when he is talking with Doc Kidman about this fact, this is debated back and forth. Did it happen before or after?
Right.
And the doc is like, I don't know. And he's the one performing the autopsies.
Right.
So.
Well, we're talking about a guy who's performing autopsies in a very small town.
Sure.
This is not like the big city type doctors, and it's definitely a different skill level that we're talking about here.
Sure. But what does it say to Sam's ability to just know?
Right. Well,
is his opinion, should we trust his opinion just by looking at this body?
Right. Yeah, I don't know. So they put him in a sheet to help get him back into town. Bo asks what he's going to say to Lita Ader. Sam suggests that they do the autopsy first, but nope, that's not happening because Doc Kinnaman is in basically performing a labor.
Yeah, Doc Kidman and Daisy, which we assume is his nurse. We never meet Daisy.
Right.
They are delivering Mrs. DeVoe's 16th or 17th baby.
Oh, nice.
Bo wasn't sure which one it was.
So, 16 babies?
16th or 17th. It's the 50s.
Okay. Wow. That's a lot of babies. I didn't realize that anybody could have that amount of babies. That would be like one every year until you're dead, basically.
Well, you probably would be after.
Right. Yes. I would figure that they wouldn't be able to survive 16 pregnancies.
Well, there could be some twins in there.
Okay. All right. I mean, I guess they didn't have a lot else to do, so they just had babies.
I would say even earlier than this. But looking at genealogy, there were women who popped out babies every single 9 months, their whole lives.
Wow.
Just that's how it happened.
I mean, I guess they didn't have movies or cell phones.
But then, half of them would die in within their first year or something.
Gotcha. Okay. So, Abigail, his host's 10-year-old daughter, is brought up as having seen Bart Ader.
Yeah, she's the one who discovered the body.
Right. And Sam decides it's really urgent that he go and check on his daughter now. I'm not quite totally sure why he has this urgency to go see Abigail, but he does.
It might go back to, just knowing what he's here to do.
So he
doesn't know,
he has some kind of innate
he
feeling.
Has this, as soon as he finds out that there's this 10-year-old child involved, he knows he wasn't here to save Bart.
Right, obviously.
So,
yeah.
So he has instincts, you know? He has this, and all the time, really.
Right.
You know, where he just knows what he's supposed to do, even when Ziggy's telling him he's supposed to do something completely different.
Right.
He just has a sixth sense about it, which, you know, explains how he potentially was able to keep leaping without Ziggy.
Yeah.
And be successful at that, because that seems really improbable that you'd be very successful.
Right.
But we have to believe he was.
I mean, it's not like Al and Ziggy were all that helpful most of the time anyway, but...
But yeah, he's been doing this, you know, 80-something leaps.
Right.
He's got a good sense about what he's supposed to be paying attention to.
Gotcha. So Sam is dropped off. Bart is taken to the funeral home because the person who would be doing the autopsy is, of course, delivering the baby. Funeral home is the best place to take him at this point.
Right.
There's not like some kind of like, you know, when a hospital where they have the...
Well, they don't have a hospital. They just have the doc.
Right, okay.
Right, and he said... So Sam said bring him to Doc's, and he was like, you think Will's going to stay with a dead body all night?
Right.
Well, the Doc's off delivering a baby in the boonies, and that family doesn't have a phone, by the way. That was mentioned, so they can't reach him. Because, you know, it's the 50s.
Right.
So the teenager, Will, is home alone, and he was like, yeah, he's not going to hang out with a dead body. So
why not? That sounds like so much fun.
We're not going to put him there. So they put him in the funeral home, which just so happens to be right next door to the sheriff's station. So that's very convenient throughout this episode, that's where we're putting the body, is right next door to the sheriff's station.
Right. So Bo offers to call Lita for him, and I guess he agrees to do this. When he leaves, Abigail comes out of the house to greet her dad. She's played by Kimberly Cullum. 19 credits for her. She's only in the first and last episode of the trilogy. She's not in the second one. 5 episodes of BR5 and an episode of Star Trek TNG as Data's alien friend in Dino Self, which is an episode I really enjoyed back in the day.
I remember picking her out when I was watching Star Trek.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
So, yeah.
Because you did end up watching that with Adam. And she was also in 2 episodes of Home Improvement.
Yes, I have that as well. And, of course, she's in these 2 episodes, but playing 2 different characters.
Right.
Which I think I love that, too.
Yes. That was fun. Yeah, and I guess Kimberly Cullum is a pretty good actress because she pulls off 2 very different characters within this trilogy. Like, you know, there's this one, and then, of course, the one she plays in the final part of this trilogy. They're 2 very different performances.
Yeah.
So she must have been a really good actress. I'm surprised she only had 19 credits. But maybe she just decided acting wasn't for her.
I suppose so.
So also coming out is, I guess, the maid or the housekeeper.
Nanny, housekeeper. She's the hired help.
Marie Billings, also played by Fran Bennett, who has 4 appearances in the series, the 3 trilogy episodes, and last season's Justice. And I thought she actually appeared in another episode, but that was somebody else. I actually checked into that because I originally thought she was in that episode as well, but she's not. 112 credits for her, including a couple on The Heat of the Night, NCIS, another Donald B. Belzero series, and Early Edition, which we've talked about.
She also was in 2 episodes of The Fosters, which is a show I loved, and she was in the movie Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
Oh, okay. She was in that. Cool. So Abigail tells her father that her and Bart had some words before he died. She said that he was yelling at her about Violet's locket, thinking that she had it. Abigail doesn't have it, but the locket was supposed to be hers. She says she saved up the money to get it, and Violet bought it first out of spite. Abigail asks to be held on the swing.
She asks him to tell her all of the ways that he loves her.
Yeah, and, you know, this goes back to what you were saying earlier, that this is a really creepy performance. Like,
yeah.
It's understandable why she would be mentally messed up because, well, one, she just witnessed somebody dying, and she's been blamed for Violet's death, which, you know, is not something that we know about yet.
Right.
And her mother is in a mental institution.
Right.
So this person being mentally screwed up as a 10-year-old is not really that surprising. But it's also kind of leaves room to question whether she actually did kill Bart.
Right.
Whether
that's
she
the
actually
whole
did
thing
kill Violet.
We're led to suspect her.
Right.
Right?
Mm.
Like, could this child be guilty of murder? That's
Right.
kind of the question. Throughout the trilogy, really, is Abigail worth defending? Like,
right.
And she must be if we keep coming back to save her.
Right.
But yeah, there's always this question of nobody really knows what happened.
Right.
Like, why does everybody in this family keep dying?
Right. And it should also be mentioned that when he is holding around the swing, she's humming the Mockingbird song,
yes.
which is a theme that plays throughout this trilogy.
Right.
And adds a
it's a
dimension of creepiness.
It's super creepy.
Yeah.
Super creepy.
Yeah.
And she just kind of like goes into this almost like a fugue state.
Right.
You know, where she just disassociates from everything going on, starts humming. Like, she does this multiple times.
Right.
And it's just super weird and creepy and done so well.
Mm-hmm.
It's perfect.
All right, so Sam puts Abigail to bed, comes out to find Al 9 minutes and 8 seconds into the episode. That's pretty late for him. Sam shushes him like he might wake her up, despite the fact that he's a hologram, a fact that Al actually ends up pointing out, like, who's going to hear me? Sam asks what's going to happen to Abigail. Al accuses him of being jumpy, and Sam explains his less than stellar day and looks into the mirror to see his director looking at him, James Whitmore Jr., playing the mirror image. And of course, we've talked about him before, so I don't think we need to do the rundown of his credits again.
Well, I was going to, because he has such an impressive, I'm
sure you'll mention ones that we did not mention before.
He has such an impressive thing. First of all, he has 84 directorial credits.
Yes.
That's an impressive career.
And he's still directing. He was I most recently saw his name pop up on a show that I recently started watching and finished, called Evil. And he has a couple of directing credits there.
Yeah, among his directing credits are 15 episodes of Quantum Leap, 50 episodes of NCIS, 16 episodes of NCIS New Orleans, 13 episodes of NCIS Los Angeles, 2 episodes of Star Trek Enterprise, 11 episodes of Beverly Hills 90210, and an episode of X-Files.
Yes.
Among many, many other things.
I'm pretty sure I covered that X-Files episode, too.
And of course, within Quantum Leap, he has 2 other acting credits. He is the police captain in Mirror Image and Bob Crockett in 8.5 Months.
Yes, and that was a trivia question of ours. It was basically the question was, which episode did he both direct and appear in? And this was, of course, one of those episodes that that was the case for. He's an impressive guy. He has, and I think he's the one that talked Bakula into performing.
Yeah, he's got something to do with the Peterborough Players Playhouse.
Yeah.
I don't remember the whole story, but him and his father had something to do with like the founding of the Playhouse.
Yes.
And it's the reason that Scott ended up there.
Yes, and that was Man of La Mancha, correct?
To see Man of La Mancha. Yeah, which we got to go see in New Hampshire. So, yeah. Thank you, Whitmore family.
Yes. All right, so Al starts to give him the rundown, only telling him the things that basically Sam has already managed to figure out. And Al can't give him much more because a flood destroyed the records. Okay, so oftentimes we talk about how useless Al and Ziggy are. Here, there's at least a good reason for it.
There is a good reason, but it's such an excuse because just like 2 episodes ago, we have no records because there was a flood.
Right.
Or was this the flood? This was a flood. The other one was a fire.
Right.
Like town records get taken out an awful lot at places.
Right.
That Sam's going to.
Yep. That sucks.
Now the other thing is, I was like, even in 1955, a fire.
Yeah.
Kills a sheriff and his 10-year-old daughter. That would be a bigger story.
Yes.
Than the local newspaper that got destroyed.
Yeah.
Like, shouldn't this information have been readily available? And later we'll be like, oh yeah, Ziggy found it in another paper. Why didn't you find that right away?
Right. I mean, you would figure that the local newspapers would be the first thing that you would check.
Well, that's the thing, is they're saying there is no local papers. The records were destroyed.
Gotcha.
But this kind of story would have resonated. It would have been in, the bigger cities, the nearby cities would have also covered the story of a sheriff getting killed in a fire. He's not just, some Joe Schmo on the corner.
Right.
He's like a notable citizen.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you would think so.
So the idea that, we can't find any information just shows you how useless Ziggy was compared to Google. Oh, that's where I have that note.
Oh, okay.
I don't see it here, but I think that's where somewhere in here I compare Ziggy to Google. This Ziggy to bad Google.
Right, okay.
I know I typed bad Google somewhere.
Okay.
And it's not right here, but it's somewhere in these notes. I know it is. Just being that, the 90s thought of what the computer model was capable of.
Right.
Is just so far behind what real life technology has become.
Right.
That
absolutely.
we look at it and we're like, how did you not in 5 seconds know that he dies in a freaking fire?
Right. I could have found that information.
But conceptually, in the 90s when this was written, like the idea of taking hours to find that information was an accomplishment. You know?
Yeah.
The other thing from this is Al's describing Clayton while we're looking at James Whitmore Jr.'s mirror image. He describes Clayton as a 40-ish-year-old man who's the sheriff. The look you're giving me. Yes! So I'm looking at this image of James Whitmore Jr., and I had to stop. I was like, wait a minute. He looks at least 60 to me. Yes. And I was like, what do you mean he's 40-ish? I had to look it up. Okay. I looked up James Whitmore Jr. He was born in 1948. So when this was filmed, he was about 45 years old. Wow. And, yes, that made me feel old as dirt.
I mean, if you don't mind me saying, I think you've aged slightly better than James Whitmore Jr. has at this stage in his life, apparently. And I guess so have I. But, I mean, that's not news to me. Like, I know that I don't look like in my, like, close to 50.
I think it's a thing. If you, you know, it's about 80s and people in the 80s and 90s looked older.
I guess so.
Than we do now.
Yeah, maybe it was more drugs.
I mean,
more drugs and more alcohol.
Some of it is just our own personal misconception, I guess. You know, because you don't think of yourself as the age you are. You always think of yourself as being 20 years younger. Right. Like, that's just part of life, I think. Yeah. But when you look at television, specifically, like, 80s and 90s television, everybody looks old. Yes. And is it just because we saw this when we were kids and they were old to us?
I mean, maybe.
We never, like, reconciled that thought?
I can think of two actors. Like,
is it just because everybody looked older? Like, Golden Girls. Yes. They were in their 40s. Do you know that?
No.
Yes.
No.
Except for, you know, the mother.
Okay. No. I think they're like 80 years old. Like, wow, okay.
I want to say Blanche was supposed to be like 47.
Okay.
She was working, you know?
Right,
she was a teacher.
Wow. Okay.
And I think Rose was like 50 maybe.
Okay. Wow.
But, yeah.
I always think they're much older than that.
Exactly.
Wow. Like, you know, an actor like Steve Martin, to me, he's always been old. Right. Like, as far back as when we talked about Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, he looked old, and that was 40-something years ago.
Right, right.
And Anthony Hopkins, he's another one that always looked old to me. Like, I don't know how this guy is still around, because wasn't he, like, ancient, like, back when I was, like, a kid? But, he's still around, and he's not even that old.
Those are great specific examples of actors who just never really aged from where that starting point you have in your head. Yeah. But I mean, just in general, like everyday characters. Mm-hmm. Like, you look at any TV show, the parents of the 10-year-old always look like they're 60. Right. But they should be like 30. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
And they probably are 30 but they're not. They can't be.
Right. All right, so moving along from this, because we've been on this one for quite a bit, he notices some letters to Laura, his wife, that were never sent out. Abigail asks him who he's talking to. He's been talking to Al. Al says not to blame him for waking up Abigail specifically. Abigail thinks he's talking to his wife. Al makes the assumption that she's dead.
Yeah, they're leading us, definitely, to think that Laura's dead. Right. And this whole conversation, Abigail's like, I miss her too, and sometimes I talk to her. And then Sam does this whole, like, speech to her about, like, and it's really quite funny when you know the whole story, and you know the truth, and you know she's not dead. Yes. But Sam's assuming she's dead. And Abigail's like...
He's basically giving her the speech about somebody who's passed away that you really care about.
He's giving her a grieving speech. Yeah. And she's just like, I talked to her, but she never talks back. Right. Why doesn't she talk back?
And the reason is because she's actually been to see her mother. Right. And she doesn't talk because she's in catatonic state or something.
Yeah. Right. It's this conversation is two different conversations.
Right.
Which you don't know the first time you're watching this. You think, we're talking about a little girl who lost her mother and, is struggling with death. But it really is this little girl saying, how come my mother won't talk to me?
Right. Yeah.
And Sam's giving her a speech about grief.
Right. So Sam comforts her, sends her back off to bed, and Sam wants reassurance that she's not going to die, but Ziggy, of course, has nothing. Sam thinks that she saw something with Bart, and that maybe perhaps what she saw might lead her to be in danger. Sam basically is jumping up and down on Al's head. He's being, really cranky towards Al at this moment. He apologizes for it, and then Al goes back to Ziggy and try to get more data. And goodbye.
Al. He says this is where he says he's going to have Ziggy run a national cross search.
Okay, so
why was that not automatic?
Right,
why is that not standard protocol?
It's not the first time I've heard Al say something, well, I'm going to have Ziggy do this. And I'm like, why weren't you already doing that?
Yeah, why isn't Ziggy just doing that on her own?
Right.
Why do you got to tell her to do that?
Right. So Sam looks out a window.
Before you move on, there's one more thing I want to backtrack a little bit to before Abigail actually left the room. She makes him promise that he's not going to leave her. Mm-hmm. And again, we don't know the mom's not dead yet, but that's the thought, right? His mom died, you're not going to die too.
Right.
That's how it sounds. Mm-hmm. And he promises, I will be here as long as you need me.
Well, maybe that's why he keeps sleeping around.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I was going to say. Sam, of course, he doesn't want to lie to her. And he's not going to be like, I'm never going to leave you. But he says a very honest statement. He says, I'm going to be here as long as you need me for. Meaning, I think I'm here to help you, and I'm going to help you.
Right.
He's talking as Sam.
Right.
But that promise is just so, think about it. We know eventually, we learned that Sam is controlling his own leaps. He doesn't know he is.
Right.
But he's told, you have control. So could it be something within him keeping that promise? Which is why he keeps coming back into Abigail's life. Because she still needs him.
Right.
She needs him, and so he is there for her. Time after time.
That makes sense.
Because he
made
this
profound
promise to her.
Yeah.
That I'll be here as long as you need me. And that really stood out to me. Wow, that's beautiful. Because that's what happens is 3 times throughout her life, she's about to die, and he comes and saves her.
Right. Wow. I never actually thought about that, and that's pretty a pretty profound statement.
Yeah. And we also learned during this that they're going to have a picnic tomorrow.
Oh.
Which sets up another scene with Abigail.
So Sam is looking out the window. There's a gust of wind. He ends up seeing Laura at the door when he turns around. The door closes. Sam ends up opening the door. She's not anywhere to be found, but he sees his daughter standing in the hall very creepily.
The whole thing is very creepy.
Okay, so so first of all, Laura is played by Meg Foster. 140 credits for her. All 3 episodes of the trilogy, and an episode of Twin Peaks. Deep Space Nine, The Muse. I couldn't come up with the name of that title when we were doing trivia when that came up, but I do remember it now. An episode of Sliders. Lots of horror on her resume. There's lots and lots of horror.
Jeepers Creepers 3.
Yes.
She was in one episode of the Twin Peaks revival. She's a recurring character in Pretty Little Liars,
yes.
Which comes up in trivia. Make sure you watch our trivia game, guys.
Yes.
It's so much fun. 5 episodes of that series as Mrs. Grunwald, and then she reprised that role for 7 episodes of the spin-off series Ravenswood.
Yeah, so I'm going to ask this.
She's super creepy in the best way.
Yes.
Meg Foster's awesome.
Yeah, her as a kid, I was really creeped out by this character.
I still
especially
am
at
creeped
the
out
end.
by this whole actress. Everything she does. It's the eyes. She's got those eyes.
All right, so here's the thing, though. I have a question.
Yeah.
We know, and we've already talked about this, she is not actually dead.
Right.
So this is not some kind of ghostly spirit.
No, she's here. She comes to visit.
Does she really, though? She's physically there?
Yes. I mean, she's there at the fire. She's the one who starts the fire, not to get ahead of ourselves.
So that was literal?
Yes. We'll learn in episode 2, I'm pretty sure.
Well, Lita Ader says that, but I didn't actually take that literally. I thought that was just her deflecting.
How long's it been since you've watched this trilogy?
Quite some time.
Because when we get to episode 2, we're going to see her, and she is burned. Her hair is gone. Her face is covered in burns.
Oh, that's why that was?
Because she was trapped in the fire for a minute. She got out.
So she was literally there.
She literally started the fire.
Okay, so when we see her first appearance here, she was visiting.
Yes. So, and I feel like there's a line kind of explaining it in episode 2. And I don't recall exactly what it said, but the idea is that she was self-committed. She has the power to come and go at will.
That was episode 3. We learned that in episode 3.
At some point, they tell us that, like that she can come and go.
She was voluntarily.
She's not being detained in the hospital.
Right.
She comes and leaves. She's like, just comes home all the time.
Wow.
So when Abigail says, I talked to her, I don't think she necessarily means she's visiting Peachtree. She means Mom's here in my room tucking me in at night.
That's crazy.
And does Clayton know she's in the house? I have no idea, but she's there.
So it's been 30 years. I never understood what this whole Sam suddenly seeing her thing was. Like at first, we're kind of led to believe that she's like a ghost of some kind.
No, but she's definitely there at the end of the episode.
Gotcha.
Because we see her in the effects of having been burned. And, of course, we learn her part in, everything else that happens.
Wow. I never made the connection that she was actually at the fire. I thought she was... Like, why didn't Al say something about her being there?
I don't think Al saw her.
Okay. Wow. Okay. All right. My mind is blown. See, for many years, I thought this was just some kind of way to screw with us, or some kind of like after image of his host, because we do play a lot in this trilogy with the whole Sam's connecting to his host thing, especially in the latter 2 episodes of this trilogy. So I thought this was like some kind of connection to his host having images of his dead.
Now, one thing that
wife.
I don't feel is explained is why she was gone when he went in the hallway.
Right.
Like, she dip into a room. Is she hanging out in that closet that Abigail's going to hide in later?
Well, yeah. I mean, did Abigail see her mother?
I think yes.
Okay.
I could be wrong about all of this.
Okay.
But the way I see it is Abigail was standing there seeing her mom.
Right.
And, Mom dipped out really fast.
Just went out the window?
I don't know where she went, but she's not in the hallway anymore.
Well, she's a sprightly figure,
and then Abigail, looks at her dad and is like, good night, Dad. Like, they had just been talking about how Mom doesn't talk, and Mom's here, not talking.
Wow. Okay. That's, all right. I never considered the fact that she was actually there. and I didn't think that she was actually there at the fire either. I thought that was like some kind of, I don't know. I didn't know what that was.
Well, she's definitely there at the fire because the next time we see her, she's covered, her whole body's burned.
And that's, okay, wow. See, I didn't make the connection between why she looked like that, and I thought that was just like neglect.
Which again, we don't get it in this episode.
Right, that's episode 3.
She's the one who, at the end of this episode, Lita is talking to. Lita says, leave me alone. I'll kill all of you. She's talking to Laura.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it's Laura's fault that the lantern gets dropped and the fire starts.
Okay.
Because Laura is trying to get Lita away from Abigail.
Okay. So this is why we do a podcast, so that I can get educated. All right. So the next day, a kid rides past the well. We actually see the kid driving past the well that Violet is in. And that's a nice little bit of foreshadowing.
Yeah,
there.
We see this boarded up well.
Never noticed this before, that they actually
show
this kid.
The well.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we don't in this episode the well doesn't come up.
Right.
We don't talk about the well till later.
But it's visually referenced.
It's there,
which is pretty cool.
And somebody in trivia, and I don't remember who, tells us that there's actually a deleted scene. I don't know if that was Hayden that told us that. Somebody tells us. It might have been. Which I meant to go look for, but didn't. That there's a deleted scene out there showing James Whitmore Jr. as Clayton Fuller boarding up the well.
Oh, okay. Oh. Does that mean he knew that Violet was in there, or?
I don't know what that means, but they deleted it, so it's not canon.
Right, okay. So, at the sheriff's office, Bo talks to Will Kinnaman, and, of course, he's talking to Will Kinnaman, played by Travis Fine. Okay, so I'm going to ask this question. How old is he? The actual actor is born in 1968, making the actor at this age 24. And
is he?
Yeah, this is a relevant question, by the way.
It is a relevant question, and it's something I thought about, and I pegged him about 14.
14? Okay. The actor himself is 24.
That's crazy. I would never have guessed that. I didn't look it up. But yeah, I was prepared to have this conversation, of course.
Yes.
I pegged him about 14.
Okay.
That was my guess.
If he was 14, not Violet.
Abigail
is 10.
Yeah.
That's not terrible.
No.
But if he's older than that, it becomes more questionable.
No, that's where I'm placing it. He's about 14. Obviously, we know she's 10. We, throughout this episode, starting very soon, see that he has taken a liking to her. He's protective of her, right?
Right.
He's the one who gets her off the roof at the end. But throughout this episode, he's defending her and standing up for her, and he's there for her. And it's very easy to see how this would lead to a romantic relationship later in their lives.
So you were prepared,
when she's not 10.
Right. So you were prepared to talk about this because you figured that I was going to have something to say.
It's one of those things.
Yes.
It's part of the conversation about this trilogy.
Right.
Part of the things that needs to be defended. Because, okay, all the ickiness everybody says about this whole story is, there's this little girl, and then we're, giving her all these relationships.
Right.
But you know what? Every single human being was a child at some point.
Yes.
Just because we're watching them as a child doesn't mean we don't allow them to grow up.
I get that. That's not my problem. My problem is the age difference between Will and Abigail when they initially know each other.
Right.
Now, if he's in his 20s and she's 10 and then they get together, that's
no, I'm definitely seeing he's a teenager for sure.
Okay.
But I'm guessing he's not more than 14 or 15. We know he lives at home with his dad. He wasn't going to stay at home with a dead body.
Okay, right.
We see him delivering sandwiches.
Right.
That's what he's doing in the scene is he brought them lunch. He's just, helping out everybody around town. He's a kid.
Yeah, okay. All right.
As far as that's my opinion.
Okay.
I definitely don't think he's meant to be 24.
No, I don't think so. And it's not unusual for somebody who's older to play a younger character.
Right, not at all.
But
yeah, I'm seeing him as that. I had picked that number 14. It sounded right to me, but maybe 15, maybe 16.
I'm gonna guess around 16. Either way,
he's gone through puberty.
Yes.
Abigail obviously hasn't.
Right.
But once we fast forward a decade, it's not that big of a deal, I don't think, if they're 4 or 5 years apart.
And it also comes down to the time frame that we're talking about,
right? And
also the fact that we're in a very small town where stuff like that is very different compared to morality in the way we're used to thinking about it.
Sure. Especially when people kind of stay in that small town, generation after generation.
Right.
The dating pool is kind of small.
Right. Yeah. All right. So Sam.
We didn't actually talk about him. Travis Fine. We didn't talk about his.
Oh yeah.
So we're gonna see him again in Trilogy Part 2, and I think it's just a flashback.
Right.
And probably a mirror image.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not in 3.
No.
He was in 2 episodes of Jag, and he's in the movie Child's Play 3.
Oh, okay. So Sam discovers a photo of his wife, and Lita ends up walking in.
The photo of Laura is when he's realizing the woman he saw was Laura. He hadn't figured that out yet. So now he knows who it is and is confused and, I don't know, thinks that the child is providing haunting images or something. So. Also in this scene, we have an uncredited character, Delta. She's the secretary.
Okay.
I'm not sure why she's uncredited because we hear her voice twice in the episode. Mm-hmm. But she's uncredited. She's played by Beth Alward. There's a bunch of letters in there. She was in 1 episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, 1 episode of Seinfeld, and she was in Forrest Gump.
Okay. So, Lita comes in. Sam gives his condolences. She demands to see her husband despite him still being checked out and basically being autopsied. Sam floats the idea that it might not have been an accident. And she calls the fall and hit the fact that it was said that he fell and hit his head was just another fall or lie. She begs to see her husband, and eventually Will comes back and tells her his dad said it was okay. Lita in her initial appearance is not terrible.
Yeah, she's grieving.
Yes. I mean, she's not exactly the most pleasant person here, but this is not the best day of her life.
This is where we get the timeline that Violet died 2 years ago. Like, we'd had some mention of Violet, I think, before, but this is... And that's the thing, is we're getting all these facts sprinkled in throughout the episode. Like, what are these people talking about? We don't know. There was some mention of a necklace. We don't know what they're talking about yet. Right. And that's what I love, is the story's just unfolding, right? And we're seeing it, like, through Sam's eyes of not having a clue all the things he's supposed to know and having to piece together what the heck's going on in this town. But we learned 2 years ago Violet died. Now her husband's dead. Totally sympathetic for her. Right. Like, yeah, her family's dead. And she wants to see her husband. And I don't feel like, until we get to the next, the scene with her and Abigail, I have no problems with this woman.
And I can't believe it, but I did not take any credits for her.
All right. Leah Ader is played by Mary Gordon Murray. She, of course, appears in all 3 trilogy episodes. She is in the movie Junior and 2 episodes of Matlock.
Okay.
Is what I have for her.
So Sam talks to Doc Kinnaman, played by Max Wright. 67 credits for him, including the dad in Alf for 101 episodes.
Yep.
For some weird reason, the Internet Movie Database page says that went on until 2004, but I see no reason for that whatsoever. Like, there's not a revival or anything like that.
Oh.
I can't even see an episode that, like, goes that late. There's an unaired pilot that says it was aired in 2022, but I don't see anything in 2004, so I don't get where Internet Movie Database is coming up with that.
Well, we know IMDb is not always accurate.
Right.
For sure. But yeah, definitely instantly recognizable. He was Willie on Elf. And the other thing I personally recognize him from instantly is he was in 4 episodes of Ghost Rider.
Yes.
Did you watch that series?
A little bit.
I loved that when I was a kid.
He was also in 2 episodes of Cheers and 2 episodes of the Stan miniseries, which is another thing I recognized him from. He played a doctor that ended up being very dead.
He's one of those very recognizable kind of character actors.
He was in the first episode and the last episode of the trilogy. I'm a little surprised that he even appeared in the last episode.
It's a flashback.
Okay,
There's a flashback of one of these scenes.
Gotcha, because by the time the final episode of the trilogy comes along, he would be quite old.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's a flashback to something from this episode.
Gotcha. So Doc fills him in on the history and the mystery behind Violet's death. Sam ends up spotting Lita and offers her something like, do you want some water, some food or something? Sam's very gentle with her, and she's not really all that receptive to her. But again, this comes down to the fact that she's grieving and this is not the best day of her life, so she's not the most pleasant person. And I think she probably also has some kind of hatred towards Sam's host, but
she has a problem with the Fuller family, and all the way going back to Laura's the Blanchett family, which we don't know anything about yet, but we're soon to learn all about them. Like, she honestly thinks this family is the root of all evil in her life,
right?
And her lifelong vendetta is against this family,
right?
Particularly Abigail, but the whole family. She's just like, you people are evil itself, and you're the reason I keep losing everything. The doc says he needs to tell him something. Al returns just in time to see the corpse. We know how much he loves that. Doc thinks that Bart was murdered, or at least possibly. The blow would have caused... He thinks that the blow to his head could have caused a heart attack. And Sam suggests an alternate theory, but Doc thinks it's a weird coincidence that Abigail was the last person to see Violet and Bart alive. All right, I'm not buying this. I'm not buying that a 10-year-old girl could strike a grown man with an oar hard enough to cause a heart attack. So I don't know why anybody thinks this is legitimate. But, I mean, yeah, so I'm not really buying it. But my biggest problem with the whole thing is the story was, before we met Abigail, that she found the dead body.
Yes.
When did it become public knowledge that she's admitting he was alive when she saw him?
Not yet. That hasn't come out yet.
So why do people think that?
I don't know.
Just because she's the one who discovered the body? Because that was the story, right? That's what Bo and Clayton were told before Sam gets here. Is she found a body and they're going to retrieve the body.
Right. It's not public knowledge. It will be in a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I guess maybe she's just they're considering her guilty because of what happened to Violet.
Because the whole town never believed that she wasn't guilty, I guess. right? They think, oh, her daddy closed the case.
Right. Yeah, like nepotism, basically. Right. Will comes in and tells Sam that Lita is accosting Abigail. There's a bunch of people shouting, including Will, who's sticking up for Abigail. Larry Stanton, played by W.K. Stratton, his third of 5 appearances in the series, officially anyway. He has uncredited work on the series in Hurricane and Black on White on Fire. And was there anything I was missing?
Yeah, he's a voice dispatcher on both of those. And of course, his other appearances are as Dr. Berger in Genesis, the Sheriff in Goodnight Dear Heart. That's the second time Goodnight Dear Heart's come up. When else did we mention it?
We were talking about it when we were talking about Sam standing over the dead body. Yeah.
Yeah. So he's in the dead body episode. Right. Yeah. 16 episodes of JAG and 3 episodes of Magnum PI.
We've talked about him before. I didn't get any credits for him this time out, but his first acting credit was in The Search for Tomorrow in 1973, which was apparently a soap that ran for 1,513 episodes.
Well, there you go.
So he tries to get involved in this situation and is shouted down by the sheriff, by Bo, actually.
I love this scene. And this is one of the scenes that we flash back to, like, in all 3 episodes. We keep coming back to this. Like, when Sam realizes who he is in part 3, this is the scene we see.
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful looking at this scene because they're all there. Will is there, standing up for Abigail. Larry's there, standing up for Abigail. And it's this perfect foreshadowing of, these are the people. This is her tribe. Right. All the people Sam's going to leap into to help her.
Right. And that's interesting.
Set up so beautifully that it's like, yeah, these are, like,
her defenders.
These are the people who are on her court, on her side. And this is who Sam's going to leap into every time he comes back to help her, is somebody who's in the middle of this room right now defending her.
And so Stanton insists the child has rights, but they all continue to shout at each other. Bo is basically like, Larry, no soliciting on this. Nobody asked for a lawyer. And it's interesting to me, you mentioned that Larry and Will as defenders of Abigail, and I'm suggesting that Bo is just kind of agnostic almost. He's doing his job.
True, yeah, right? Like they can't take sides. This is the sheriff's office,
right? He's not taking sides. He's just doing his job, and he will do his job throughout the trilogy.
Yeah.
He doesn't take sides. He just, does what he does.
Right. And honestly, like, even though he is only the deputy at this point, like, this is the right move for him to step up. Because Clayton, obviously, has too much skin in the game here. Yes. He shouldn't be investigating any of this if his daughter is a suspect.
Right.
But Sam steps up and is like, my daughter doesn't need a lawyer.
Right.
Maybe she does.
Right.
I mean, maybe you shouldn't be turning away the lawyer.
But you notice Larry's reaction to this? He basically, like, okay, he puts his hand up like, I respect that, and he backs down.
Right.
Yeah. But, so that's interesting in itself, watching Larry Stanton react in that way. So Lita's taken out of the station. Will comforts Abigail.
Yeah, again, these tender moments between Will and Abigail. And, I don't see anything wrong with it. I don't see it as, he has some, romantic interest in this child. I see it as he cares about her as a human being, and cares about the people in the community, and he's there for them.
Fair enough.
And, we're going to learn later, he's a neighbor, because he's right there when that fire happens. So, she's the girl next door.
Yeah, literally. Al wants to talk to Sam. Sam goes into his office, looking for a file on Violet Ader, and eventually finds out that her sweater was found bloody. They eventually called off the search, assuming that a pack of dogs got her.
And then they killed the dogs, and Clayton's the one who called off the investigation. So
which is kind of iffy.
That, the town maybe doesn't trust.
Well, again, if If Abigail was involved in this situation, she was a suspect in this situation, her father should not have been involved in this investigation.
Right.
Somebody else should have taken it over. So, in some ways, I kind of feel like Lita Eder has a point.
She does have some kind of point, but also, like, there was no body.
Right.
Like, it was never a murder investigation.
Right.
it was a missing child.
Right. Now, that doesn't excuse what she does for the rest of the episode and the rest of the trilogy.
No, she's a terrible human being.
Right. I'm just saying that perhaps on this one issue, she sort of has a point. I understand
her suspicions of Abigail. Like, we as an audience are led to suspect Abigail just as much.
Right.
Like, that's the setup. Even Sam is like, do you think she could be capable of murder?
That line's coming up.
Yeah. I want to talk about this file of Violet's for a minute.
Okay.
So this is one of those faux pas that the props department did.
They didn't account for the fact that people would be watching DVDs or see it streaming and be able to pause.
And
zoom in and enhance.
High def screenshots.
Yeah.
So the newspaper articles, there's 2 of them in her file. They are 1990s articles.
Okay.
Not about so the headlines are about Violet and the case, but they didn't bother like writing up copyright for it. They took like actual news articles from the 90s and just changed the headlines. And the full contents of those articles can be found on Al's Place on the episode guide for this page if anybody's curious about those articles. But they have nothing to do with the show.
Okay. So nothing to do with Violet or
nothing
anything.
At all. They're like literally like, here's a newspaper, let's put a headline on it and make it a prop.
Okay.
And the other thing is underneath it, you can see the edge of what you have to assume is Violet's death certificate, because this is Violet's folder. But the death certificate is for a 45-year-old male.
Huh, okay.
You see an M and you see age 45.
Wow.
One possibility is that this prop was drawn up to be Bart's death certificate.
Or maybe Violet identified as a 45-year-old man.
Like, maybe the prop was made for Bart, but then they didn't have a folder for Bart. They had a folder for Violet. Or, I don't know. They just didn't think anybody would see it.
That's my assumption.
But, yeah, it clearly says 45M on the little bit of the death certificate you can see.
Oh, wow.
And if it was meant to be Bart's, like, his death certificate wouldn't even be made yet since, they're literally doing his autopsy right now.
Right.
So that wouldn't have been, like...
in the file yet.
Right. Even if this wasn't, like, strictly Violet's file.
Gotcha.
This is where my note says Ziggy's no match for modern-day Google. I knew I typed it.
Okay.
Because this is where... Al has information finally.
Yeah. Yeah, Al, meanwhile, has information that Clayton and Abigail die in the fire, and the cause of the fire was never determined.
Yeah, and it took them this long to find out that they die.
Right.
And this is where I said Ziggy's no match for modern-day Google, because why did it take you, like, a whole 24 hours to find this?
So, Al gives him this information, and then Sam reacts by asking, this is the line, if he thinks a little girl like Abigail would be capable of murder. Now, I understand him having that thought, but not in reaction to this.
Right.
Like, what prompted him to say that when he was...
Because I don't think he's paying any attention to Al, honestly.
Okay, gotcha.
He is wrapped up on what is happening with Lita and this town and the mystery of it all.
Gotcha.
And that's one thing I have throughout my notes in a few places in this episode is, why are we even worrying about this, Sam? Like, why are you investigating what happened to Violet? Why? That's not what you're here for. You're here to keep this little girl from dying in a fire.
Right.
Why are you not with her right now?
Right.
He's off here investigating.
So, by the way, when Sam says this line, the camera pans over and we see Abigail and Will sitting on a bench. And Will is, like, joking with her or something. And we see Abigail laughing with him. Again, further hints as to where this relationship is eventually going to go in the future. Sam hangs with his daughter. This is the picnic.
The picnic.
Yep. As he narrates about seeing Laura, he thinks this might have been some type of vision. He's not really sure.
Because he still thinks she's dead.
Right. He tries to get info out of his daughter.
Oh, and Abigail tells him to look at the flowers.
Right.
I thought that was amusing. I don't know if you even know what that means.
No.
It's a famous line from The Walking Dead.
Oh, okay.
Where they told a little girl to look at the flowers before executing her.
Oh.
That doesn't happen in this scene.
Well, that's good.
But yeah, when Abigail's like, look at the flowers, I just like cracked up laughing.
How old is the girl they executed in The Walking Dead?
Probably about Abigail's age.
Well, that's really sad. I'm kind of bummed out now.
Spoiler alerts on Walking Dead. She murdered her little sister.
Oh, okay. So she kind of...
in order to turn her into a walker.
Oh, okay.
To keep as a pet.
Oh.
She was cray-cray. So they had a reason for killing her.
Okay. I guess so.
It's a famous line. Look at the flowers.
This episode was many years before that, I'm assuming. So.
Yeah.
So so there's no connection, or maybe it's a reference to this. Maybe The Walking Dead is referencing this.
I doubt it.
Okay. So Violet said that Laura's mom was crazy, and he's trying to get information out of his daughter, and she describes her mom yelling about Violet lying, saying that
we're talking about the night that Violet went missing, which apparently is the same night that we don't know this yet, but this is the night Laura ends up getting institutionalized.
Right. Basically Violet said that Laura's mom was crazy, killing all her children except for her, and that her and Abigail were crazy as well. Why would Violet have any of this information?
Because this is what her parents are telling her.
Now, Violet's
overhearing her parents say,
okay,
kids talk.
Yes. Okay. At this point, how long has Violet been missing for? Do we have any clue?
When this argument happened?
In this episode, how long?
2 years.
2 years.
It's
okay.
been 2 years since Violet died. They were 8.
Yeah.
Is that what you're getting at?
Yes, and Violet has all this information.
Yeah, I'm assuming nobody told her directly, but she heard her parents talking.
Okay.
Because we know Lita has a problem with his family.
Yes, right.
Right? It had to have stemmed back further than Violet's disappearing.
Sure.
And the fact that they bought the necklace in the first place.
Right. Out of spite.
It is out of spite. There's no way.
Right.
That she just happened to buy the necklace. She knew Abigail wanted the necklace in this. So we're getting this flashback scene too, and I love the black and white flashback of the 2 little girls. We know that Violet's family's well off.
Yes.
She's calling Abigail poor and crazy. So they bought the necklace just because they could. Like, there's been some animosity between these families.
Yes.
Going way back. Mm-hmm. Right? I imagine Lita is probably close to Laura's age. Mm. So they grew up together. Like, they were these 2 little girls in the last generation. You know?
Okay. I see that.
And she's always felt some kind of way about the Lanchette, now Clayton Fuller family.
Gotcha.
Violet, I'm sure, heard her parents say all these crazy things, specifically her mother, I'm sure.
Yes.
Talking all this crap about Laura and Abigail.
And then this feud between Laura and Lita Ader just kind of transferred into their kids, basically.
Right. Right.
Okay.
And, so this flashback, I love this. It's creepy.
Oh, it is super creepy. Yeah.
It's such great cinematography and editing. Mm-hmm. I love it. It's beautiful. And we're hearing Abigail tell the story over it. And again, another amazing performance by Kimberly Cullum. It's just so great. I love it.
Right.
I love it. I will always defend this. I don't care what anybody has to say. I'm defending it.
All right, so she mentions hitting Violet, who was teasing her about the locket. We have I don't know why I say crappy black and white flashback, but that's not what I meant.
Creepy is probably the word you're looking for.
Creepy is what I'm looking for. With creepy music, she hits her repeatedly until she runs off. Abigail admits to wanting her dead. Sam insists that she didn't kill her. He has no way of knowing that, but he has to assume that he's here to protect this little girl and not a killer.
Right. Or both. Right. I mean, you never know.
Yeah.
But this is where we're piecing things together, right? He read that her sweater was found bloody.
Yep.
And that's why they assumed that she was eaten by dogs. But here we're finding out the sweater's bloody because Abigail gave her a bloody nose.
Right.
That's how her sweater got bloody.
So he asks if he hit Bart. She again says he yelled at her about the locket. And asks where Sam asks where Violet's locket is. She again insists it was hers. Violet yells that she didn't kill either one of them. And Sam is like, nobody said that you did, except people are saying that. And I'm sure
he didn't say it.
Right. He specifically didn't say it, but people are saying that. So she's very well aware of the accusation.
Right.
And she again insists. Oh yeah. Okay. So Sam, she again acts very creepy. And starts getting all cuddly after getting violently scary.
She takes herself out of the situation. She goes to her little state that she does.
And she's basically like, tell me all the
ways you love me. And she's humming. And it's her way of like...
checking out, basically.
Exactly. Disappearing. She's
disassociating.
Disassociating, that's the word. Yeah, she's done.
Yeah.
She can't handle this conversation anymore, so she's out.
Right. And Lita, meanwhile, is watching this entire scene. this is a really well done scene, like all the way through. You mentioned the flashback, how that's really creepy and really good. This whole scene of her acting in this manner, yes, you could take it as, casting suspicion on her as possibly having had something to do with Bart or Violet's death or both.
Right.
But you can also take it as this child who's, internalizing all this extra BS that you wouldn't ordinarily put on a 10-year-old.
Right.
How often does a 10-year-old get accused of murdering two people and being well aware of those accusations?
Right.
There's no normal person alive who would react well in this situation.
Yeah.
So it's just like, you praise Kimberly McCall. I'm doing the same thing. Like, she is a really great child actress. And I'm really surprised that she did not go on to have a bigger career. She was also really good in Thine Own Self, too. I'd like to point that out as well. Now,
the fact that Lita is eavesdropping means she heard, probably for the first time, Violet admit to having a fight. Abigail admitting to having a fight with Violet and hitting her.
Right.
Which is what's going to prompt Lita to doing what she does later in this episode.
Yes.
So we have to assume that this is new information for her. Like hearing some admittance to something come out of Abigail's mouth. And of course, she's taking it as admittance of murder.
Right.
When really all she's saying is, yeah, I gave her a bloody nose.
So Sam is in his office. Will comes in and asks about Abigail and expresses concern for her. He reveals that Laura's mother cut her own throat. And Sam ends up trying to get more information out of it.
Right, so Sam got a little bit of this story from Abigail, right? Because she was just talking about all the things Violet was saying. And hearing it for the first time, it's like, what are you talking about, crazy child?
Right.
So Sam's trying to get information on things he should already know, right? Clayton knows this stuff. And he's asking this kid, Will, to, tell me the rumors. It's okay.
Right. And basically learns that Laura's mother killed her children and then herself, or at least this is what the rumor is.
Right. So
and Sam is not reacting very well to this at all.
It's a creepy story.
Yes. And
so Retta Lanchette was her name. That's Laura's mother. And I don't think we heard how many kids. I was looking for that fact, and I don't think it said it. Maybe in a different episode I'll revisit this story. But a bunch of kids.
Yeah.
The father left them or he died. I forget.
I'm not totally sure.
I didn't catch the detail. But dad's out of the picture. Okay. And this is the 30s? So Depression era. Okay, Great Depression. She is alone, bunch of kids, has no money. She can't feed her children. So she murders them so they don't starve to death. That's the story. She slit all of their throats except for Laura's. And then she killed herself. And yeah, we'll get more details on that story later from Laura in 3, I'm assuming.
Yes, yeah. Now I'm kind of
curious.
Like
detail by detail, she's going to give us her account, which is super creepy.
Right. Now my question is, why not also kill Laura? Why did she spare Laura?
Well, we learned that in part 3.
Okay. I don't remember that.
So spoiler alert, I'll go ahead and tell you. We'll talk about it again when we get there. But Laura was the smallest, and she fell through the crack in the mattress, and the mom missed her.
Okay.
They were all in bed asleep, and the mom came and slit all their throats.
How old was...
I don't remember, but she was the smallest, I think she said, and she, hid in the crack.
Old enough to remember this.
Well, you wouldn't forget it.
I mean, if you're 2, you wouldn't remember it either, necessarily.
Yeah, but old enough to remember it. Yeah. But also young enough that it was... made her kind of cuckoo.
Right.
Yeah, Lita's not wrong.
It would make anybody cuckoo.
Exactly.
Right.
Lita's not wrong. That Laura, has some unresolved stuff.
She's not wrong, but in a way, she handles...
But it's not hereditary.
Right. It also, she doesn't handle that information with any kind of empathy whatsoever for Laura.
No.
Or the situation. She just... Yeah, anyway. He learns all this information... Eventually learns that, so Al appears to tell Sam that Abigail still dies, but Sam has her staying at a friend's house, so he's basically...
She's staying at Marie's house.
So this has already happened. He's already sent
Right, and we didn't
right.
see any of that because
Right.
we're not worried about the fire.
Right.
The plot is not caring about the fire at all. Sam's like, no, she's not going to die in the fire because she's not staying at home. And then completely dismisses Al.
Right.
And continues to, like, investigate what happened to Violet.
Well, that's the thing is, like, Al is appearing now after Sam's already sent her to Marie, meaning she's still going to die despite the fact that Sam has done that.
Meaning you didn't do enough.
Right.
This is probably my biggest complaint with the episode, is Sam doesn't seem to give a crap about Al saying she and you are still going to die in a fire.
Right.
He's like, you're wrong because we're not at the house.
Right.
I'm going to go investigate. I just found out that Laura's still
family.
alive.
Yep.
So that came out during that conversation.
Yeah. That she's alive and in the asylum.
Sure. Al brought that information.
Yeah,
that's right.
That's what I was saying.
It didn't. Yeah, Al brought that information. So his next thing he's going to do is go talk to Laura because he wants to get to the bottom of what happened with Violet and how is Abigail involved in this. And he's completely ignoring what he's told he's here to do.
Right.
Which is to keep them from dying in a fire.
Right.
He's lost the plot.
Right.
And he's just so involved in the mystery.
Right.
So that's my biggest complaint is, Sam, go save the kid. That's what you're here for.
Well, all right. At the same time, do you really consider that out of character for Sam Beckett to get this
To be told, she's about to die in fire and him not to go to her, yes.
Okay, fair enough. But I think he thinks that he's already solved the problem that Al is coming here with.
Exactly.
Even though he very much is not.
But Al is telling him she still dies.
Right, yeah. I got you. So Sam goes to Laura, who's staring off into space.
We go to the Peach Hill Home for the Mentally Ill.
And she's rocking in her chair as Sam tries to get information out of her, but she won't answer anything.
She doesn't say a word.
Right.
She's completely catatonic with those creepy eyes, just rocking in a rocking chair.
They speculate that Lita started the fire, and Al checks on Abigail and finds out that she's going to die in the fire still, even though he's already had that information, so I'm not even really sure why this is news to him.
Because, Sam was convinced that, the records just haven't caught up to you yet or something. And they don't know how time travel works, I guess, after 80-something leaps.
And that she is not at Marie Billings. So Sam runs out of there, Al disappears, and only then does Laura react in any kind of way.
Yeah.
Reacting specifically to Al's disappearance.
She reacts to Al. She looks in the direction that Al disappeared and puts her hand up, and a tear rolls down her face. Now,
why specifically is she having this tear?
I think she just heard them say that her daughter's about to die in fire.
So she's reacting to that specifically.
I would think so.
Okay. So Abigail runs up the stairs of her house looking for her dad.
Oh, yeah, because we know she's about to leave and go try and save her daughter.
Right.
She's going to the fire.
Oh, okay.
She just heard Abigail's about to die in a fire, so she's going to go save Abigail.
Wow, okay. Mind blown, because even after you told me earlier that she was at the fire, I didn't understand why. Okay, so she has the information that her daughter is about to die, and that's why she comes here.
Right.
And basically, Abigail has been led here by Lita, which is another thing I didn't understand for the longest time, why Lita was suddenly there. And it appears like Abigail has been led here by Lita specifically.
Abigail's been led here by Lita, told that her dad's in trouble and needs her help.
Right.
Now, my question is, where the frick is Marie that Lita was able to just, pull this girl away? You're supposed to be watching her.
I think later on...
She said she was in the kitchen cooking dinner and Abigail disappeared.
Right. And why does Abigail trust Lita at all?
Because she said her dad's in trouble, so, she had to go take care of her dad. But maybe tell Marie?
Right.
I don't know, Abigail, this was a bad decision. But, I blame Marie. Bad babysitter.
Maybe worse than, from, Julie in From.
Were you not told, the girl's in danger and that's why she needs to sleep at your house?
Right. Maybe Sam didn't even bother to mention that.
We don't know what she was told, but... I don't know, maybe not let her walk off with Lita Ader.
Right. I don't know. I would not necessarily, even as a 10-year-old, believe anything that a person who's accused me twice of murdering her family members and has personally accosted her and attacked her and basically shown that she has nothing but hatred for her, I would not leave with this person.
Right.
Even as a 10-year-old.
Or at least bring Marie with you.
Right.
Be like, hey, Marie, can we go check on my dad?
I would like to think that even at 10, I would have been smart enough not to go with this person this.
But Abigail apparently wasn't. She went with her. She did.
Yes. Lita has basically lied to her, and she's brought her here because she wants the truth about Violet's locket. Not sure why she's taking her here and not somewhere else, but whatever.
I guess she assumes the locket's in their house.
Oh, yeah, I get that makes sense. So she accuses her of murder again. Al appears, and Lita continues to interrogate Abigail, and she ends up trying to escape.
Yeah, she's holding her by her wrist, and Abigail screams, like, "You're hurting me."
Right.
Another beautifully performed scene. Mm. Like, both Kimberly Cullum and Mary Gordon Murray. It's great. Yeah. It's so believable. The tension is there. They're both a little crazy.
Right.
Abigail breaks free, and she picks up a vase of flowers and breaks it over Lita's head.
So Sam, meanwhile, is 7 minutes away, and Sam is begging her to go be with her, despite the fact that Al can't really do anything. It's a comfort to Sam knowing that he's there. Abigail ends up lying to Lita, and basically says that the locket is upstairs, and she ends up kicking her down the stairs. Like, this is some kick-ass action from a 10-year-old.
Right.
Like taking out this adult so many times.
And one thing I loved is, this is what Al's telling her to do. Al, she can't hear Al, but Al's like, just tell her you have the locket, buy some time. And that's what she does.
Right.
It's like she's on the same wavelengths as Al, doing the same plan that Al has.
Right. Sam ends up hitting Marie in the car.
Yeah, literally running her over with the car.
Marie tells him what's going on with Lita. Marie has a broken leg. Sam does not want to leave her there because he has no idea if he's coming back or not. And that's both because he doesn't know that after he's completed his mission saving Abigail, that when Clayton comes back, that he's going to even remember that Marie is out there.
Right.
So he literally doesn't know if anybody's going to come back to help her. So he takes her.
Yeah, he picks her up and puts her in the car. Slowing him down, getting to the house, basically, is what's happening.
And Abigail, meanwhile, is continuing to hide from Lita. She's basically found a place upstairs.
It's like a wardrobe in the hallway that she climbs inside of. Meanwhile, Lita lights a oil lantern, which is what's going to be the catalyst of the fire.
Lita comes up the stairs with the lantern, almost finds her, but then Sam gets there. And we hear this conversation that we don't see with some... now that I know what actually happened here, I kind of feel like this is very nicely ambiguous. Because we literally do not know.
That's the thing, it takes all 3 episodes to put it all together.
And I never did. Until 30 years later when we're talking about this trilogy. She's talking to somebody. She's talking about murdering everyone.
Yeah, Lita says, no, go away. I'll kill you all.
Right.
And then we don't see Lita.
Right.
We don't see Laura.
Right. We just see the lantern fall.
We see scenes of Abigail in the closet. Abigail doesn't see what happens either. She's locked in the closet.
Right.
She managed to lock herself in accidentally.
Right.
And then we see the lantern fall to the ground and the curtains burst into flame. We don't see the women at all.
Right. We don't even see how that happened.
Right.
Or why the lantern fell or anything. We don't know if this is intentional, if this was accidental.
I definitely feel like it's an accident.
Yeah.
But it was, in my opinion, what happened, but based on what Lita said, is Laura is physically accosting Lita, trying to get her away from Abigail.
Gotcha.
And that's the lantern falls during the struggle.
Yeah, so when she said that line about Laura we'll get there again, but she says a line like, Laura was the reason the fire started. I thought that was a total lie. I thought that was just her, casting doubts and,
Yeah, Lita didn't come here to start a fire.
No.
Or to kill them.
Right.
She came here to get the locket.
Right. So anyway, the fire started. The house is catching on fire quickly. Sam comes in. He finds Abigail. Gets her out. He ends up breaking a window. Al, meanwhile, is in the scene trying to, get Sam out of this building, get Abigail out of this building.
Right, because we're told they're both supposed to die in this fire.
And Sam sees Laura in the fire. Again, I did not realize that he was actually seeing her, that this wasn't some type of vision.
He sees Laura, and he goes, Lita?
Right.
And Al responds, don't worry, Lita gets out the back.
Right. But it says nothing about Laura.
Laura's not mentioned.
Right.
But I'm pretty sure when Sam's looking at Laura and says Lita, he's actually talking about Laura and was like...
confused.
Who am I looking at?
Right. Because, I mean, it is a fire and smoke and, yeah, it'd be difficult to see who this person actually is.
Meanwhile, Will...
Yes.
And a bunch of other neighbors have gathered.
Yeah.
Marie is yelling from the car, because remember, she's got a broken leg. She's yelling that Abigail's in there.
Right. And then we see Abigail get out.
Abigail goes out the window onto the roof of the porch.
Right.
And Will is the one that climbs up and pulls her down off of there.
Aw, isn't that adorable? Meanwhile, Al is basically yelling for Sam to get out. Debris starts falling on Sam. Sam ends up leaping. And, okay. So, by the way, I'm just going to say this before moving on, because I'm actually going to cover the leap out because it's relevant to this episode, and, you know, we're doing the trilogy, so.
Okay.
Clayton, he's been gone for however many days now. His last days were spent in the waiting room. Mm-hmm. He comes back just in time to get burned to death in a fire.
And I think it's the only time this ever happened.
Right. I can't begin to describe just how much that sucks.
Yeah.
He comes back just to die in a fire.
Yeah, Sam did not manage to save his host. But he didn't die because he left, because what he was here to do was to save Abigail.
Right. And
Or, it doesn't matter if he fails.
Right.
So if he failed at saving Clayton, was he supposed to? We don't know.
Right. But he does manage to save Abigail.
And then leaves.
And he doesn't do his host any favors at the end of this episode. And that really, really sucks. But all right, so he leaps in, and he's in bed, and he's in very intimate moments here, having carnal relations with a woman. Marie Billings comes in and starts yelling at them, calling him Will. And then, again, comes back
calling him Will Kinman.
Yes.
He recognizes that name.
Right. And then comes back in and mentions that, she mentions that Abigail is there as well. And Sam makes a connection to who this is. And, why does God, time, or fate decide to leap him into this specific circumstance?
I mean, maybe...
Was it to give?
Because Sammy Joe.
So, God, time, or fate wanted to create Sammy Joe?
Yeah, I mean, you have to think so, that somewhere in the cosmic realm she was meant to be.
Okay.
Although I'm pretty sure she's not conceived in this moment. She's conceived the next night.
Oh, yes, okay.
I'm fairly certain of that.
Right. But, it's another kind of moment that kind of sucks, because he's... So, I don't know about Will's, history, whether he's had carnal relations before.
We know this is their first time together.
Right. So he's kind of robbing them of their first time by doing this. I mean, we're going to... Eventually...
We're going to talk about this a lot more next time, and I don't have notes organized on this yet, but...
Will's not sticking around after...
Oh, no. They don't... Yeah.
So their relationship is almost kind of not...
And
it doesn't matter.
It could be the baby scared him away.
Maybe.
But regardless of what happens with them, the leap... Sam leapt in mid-coitus, okay? He didn't initiate this.
Yeah.
We're in the act.
And that's there's more to that conversation, too.
There's a lot.
He just leaped from his being her dad to
right.
being her lover.
That's the big problem with Trilogy. That's the thing that people have such a problem with. And it is kind of an unfortunate scenario.
Right.
Like the leap itself.
Right.
But if he didn't leap into that moment, would he have fallen in love with Abigail, and would he have gone on to conceive Sammy Joe? Probably not.
Yeah, I'm thinking Sammy Joe would not have been conceived necessarily.
But I'm going to hold that it didn't happen here.
Right.
Because they were interrupted.
Right. Coitus interruptus. Anyway. So, yeah, I mean, I think he would still be motivated to help Abigail regardless.
Right.
Whether
he knows he's there to help her, to save her. But the fact that he literally falls in love with her and goes back to bed with her.
Right. Probably would not have happened.
Influenced by this scene.
Right.
This moment that he happened to, merge with Will.
Okay. All right. And that's where the episode ends.
Let's see. One person we didn't shout out is the actress who played Violet.
Oh, yes.
In the flashback. Violet Aders, played by Heather Lauren Olsen. She's in all 3 trilogy episodes, even though she's dead before we started.
Do we even hear her speak? Do we hear her voice at all?
Yeah, she was talking in this flashback.
Was she?
I'm pretty sure she was.
Okay. I don't remember actually hearing her voice.
I'm not positive.
Because I could have sworn it was like her...
It might have just been Abigail saying it all.
Right, yeah.
I'm not positive.
Yeah.
But we see her.
Right.
We see her, throughout that day.
Yes.
Throughout the trilogy.
Gotcha.
As we fill in what happened with her.
Okay.
She was in 244 episodes of Days of Our Lives.
Wow, okay.
And she played young Elizabeth Taylor in the 1995 movie Liz.
Okay.
And she was in 1 episode of Star Trek The Next Generation.
Do you happen to...
I don't.
I will look into that. Okay.
I couldn't tell you.
Right. Okay. So, yeah,
but I feel like I remember recognizing her, too.
If I see the credit and I actually look at it, I'll probably...
That's the one... Okay, so, my husband made me watch Star Trek Next Generation. We finished. We're currently watching Voyager and Deep Space Nine concurrently. And that's one thing I'll say throughout watching Star Trek is I pick out all the Quantum Leap people. Yes. I'm like, wait a minute, I recognize this person.
Right. There are a number of them.
And then when I look them up, it's always a Quantum Leap person.
Right.
Even if I didn't pick up who they were.
Right.
I'm like, I know this person. It's always from Quantum Leap. That's how I know them.
Gotcha. I'm going to have to look that up when we get off the air. All right. So do we have anything else to say before concluding?
I think that covers the first episode. Obviously, we're going to have a lot more to talk about as we go into parts 2 and 3.
Yes. And we had quite a bit of discussion on this one. This one was a little bit longer than the typical Quantum Leap episode.
Well, you knew it was going to be.
Yes,
because it's my favorite one.
Right, yeah. Absolutely.
Even my favorite among the favorite, which is the trilogy.
Right. So,
and among trilogy, like I said, part 2 is my least favorite. And
I'm
going to say...
But you actually listed part 3 as your least favorite.
I said 1, 3, 2.
Oh, okay. All right.
And I'm going to go ahead and say it's probably because Kimberly Cullum's not in it.
Okay. That makes sense.
Is why that's my least favorite of the 3.
Right. All right.
Yeah.
Well, it's the middle of a trilogy. So it's kind of like the one that...
It's just filler.
Yeah.
Among the story.
It's kind of like setting up pieces here and there. All right. So we have nothing else to say?
We have nothing else to say, but I'm sure you guys have a lot to say.
Yes.
And this time it won't just be us flashing back to remember the last episode. It's actually going to be relevant to the conversation we're continuing to have over the next 2 weeks.
Yes.
So if you're ever going to join the conversation, this is the time to do it because we're actively still talking about it.
All right.
So tell us about Trilogy. What do you think?
Yes.
What are your specific problems?
Yes.
I'm assuming most people have the problems. Or do you like it?
Yeah. Well, we'd like to hear from you. What'd you think of this episode? What'd you think of this podcast? Was your mind as blown as I was by the fact that Laura was actually there and not some weird vision that Sam was having?
See, now once we get to those conversations in parts 2 and 3, you're going to go, oh yeah, it's so obvious. That's what they meant.
Right. Yeah. and I'm going to be kicking myself. I actually already am kicking myself for not ever having picked up on that. All right. Stacie can be reached at?
I can reach on Twitter, X, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, TV, and Coupon Talk.
If you like this video and want to support your channel, the number of ways to do so, you can follow me on Twitter at Core Productions. You can join my Core Productions Facebook page. You can buy something from the Core Productions store on Zazzle. You can buy me a coffee. You can join the Core Productions membership at starting at 99 cents a month. And, hey, if you want content a little earlier, you can also join our $4.99 membership now. And, of course, you can like, share, and comment on this video, as well as subscribe to the channel. This is Dave and Stacie from Core Productions, signing off.